Hello, everybody. This is Celebrate Life with a Rise Daughter. I am Sylvia Blakely, your host, and I am so excited to have with us today Kara LeBlanc from Tyler, Texas. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a minute. But first of all, I just want you to know that Arise Daughter is a post-abortion mentoring ministry equipped by Holy Spirit to help women and men heal, train, and serve in the kingdom of God. We started the Celebrate Life series as a way for us to bring in guests who are also standing up for life to make sure that their voices are heard. And Kara is in a very, very contentious state. Texas has been at the forefront of making abortion unthinkable. And so we're going to get a little bit into that. And we're also going to talk a little bit about her work and maybe how you can get involved and refer people. So welcome, Kara. We are so excited to have you here. She is the Executive Director of CARE in Tyler, Texas. And Kara, if you can, just tell us a little bit about yourself, CARE, and the types of services that you offer.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. So I am the executive director for CARE, and I've been there for almost 2 years. And what we do, CARE stands for Christ-Centered Abortion Recovery and Education. And what we do is we help those who've been wounded by abortion heal, and then we educate the community of its consequences so that future generations don't choose abortion. And we offer a weekend we call it an AR weekend, abortion recovery weekend for women, and then we do a one-on-one study for men. We found that the weekends were easier for women because life happens. They would tend to drop off or not come back, or there's a baseball game tonight, or there's who knows. So the weekend format works really well for our women, and then a one-on-one weekly study for men. We're open to having more than that, but right now it's only been a one-on-one. And then we also do education. So we will go into anywhere, schools, youth groups, churches, and we'll talk about the consequences of abortion. And what I mean by that is the hurt, the trauma, stuff that people don't really tell you about or talk about. And we kind of let them know, like, this is what happens after an abortion. These are the mental struggles that you may have, and help educate them. And then we just recently started a support group called the Heartbreak of Abortion Recovery Support Group. It's out here with our Children's Park of Tyler, and that's available for women who are struggling with an abortion, past abortion experience, but maybe not ready for a full-on abortion recovery weekend. So kind of introduce them into the healing, because it's hard. It's hard to get into that state where you're ready. I think that's about it.
Well, this is what fascinated me about your organization is you offer such a wide scope of services, and especially the education piece. I feel like it's always important that we learn to fish upstream a little bit, especially with our young people. We know that as early as middle school, young people are beginning to, hear about other peers having sex and the consequences of all of that. And so I think it's important that you're in the schools and doing that educational piece to give them, tools, because if we don't, we know they're going to hear them from someplace. And with so many different avenues nowadays open to them to get information, we want them to get truth and in a way that's not intimidating to their age group. I think that's great. So talk to me a little bit about the volunteers that do all of this amazing work, some of their backgrounds, where are they coming from, and how do they contribute?
They come from all over. But most of our volunteers do have abortion in their past. Not all of them, but most of them do, especially our leadership team. Right now, all of them have had abortion or abortions in their past. And most of them have actually been through our recovery study and have come back to help other women through that hard time in their life. So it's really cool to see that come full circle. But we do have some very kind-hearted people who don't have abortion in their past, and but they have a love for women and want to help them, love for men too, but want to help them heal and see them live that fullness in their faith and in their life and let go of those chains. And so it comes from all over. The one thing that we do is that the men work with men and the women work with women. So you're never going to have a weekend where you've got men and women out there at the same time, because we know it's layered, it's different. There may be a husband and wife that are struggling, or a couple that that we don't want them together because she may blame him and he may blame her a little bit. So we do have volunteers that work strictly with men and women. And then we have a leadership team, and those are people that have background checks. They have been highly trained to work and help people through their trauma of abortion. And then we have some people who kind of help me on the resource tables on the front lines, educating people and talking to them about, what not, what choices that maybe we don't want them to make. But it's really interesting to be on the front lines. That's one of my favorite places to be, because you hear all kinds of stuff, and to see them stop and to see those people, you can see it work, and you can see, making those connections.
Right.
I'm very thankful for all of our volunteers who because it's hard and heavy sometimes, but we have some really great volunteers who will either help educate in a compassionate way, not in an activism type of way, more of a educational, so they come from all type. And then we have volunteers who are in their teens, 20s to 60s and 70s. So it's a wide scope.
Awesome. So you're ready to meet everybody where they are, which I think is super, super important. Talk to me a little bit about the men's ministry side of it. How long has that been going on, and how impactful have you seen that to be?
Very interesting. You should ask. So we have always done men's studies, but men don't always come out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Hey, I need help with this. A lot of times it's a wife or a girlfriend or a sibling that says, hey, you might want to check this out. And so it's usually by way of someone else that they hear about us. Up until recently, we've had men who have come forward and said, I'm struggling from a past abortion and I know I need help. And so that's the first time we've ever had men just outright say that. We did a resource table. It was in a park in a very public area, and it was it was a Celebrate Recovery event, and most of the people who stopped by our table were men, and that is a first for me. And it's refreshing to see that, to see more men coming out and say, I am struggling. One of our newer facilitators, who's a man, he went through our study just a few years ago, and now he's ready to give back. So it's like perfect timing how it's kind of all fallen into place that we have two male facilitators ready to take on whoever's coming. But yeah, so it's nice. It's nice to see that, because so long, they've really struggled and they've been in silence for so long because society tells them you don't have a voice here, but they're hurting. So it's nice to see that.
I know a lot of programs that will just, oh my gosh, they would be over the moon with one facilitator, and you guys have two now. And it's just going to grow and snowball as more men are healed. I think that's what's so important in this work, is that we know healed people can help heal people. And so it's really important that we give voice to those who have felt voiceless for so long. And men are definitely in that category. Just recently, I had an experience with a friend of my husband's who called him up and out of the blue wanted to discuss his past abortions and the impact it's having on him now. And he only wanted to talk to a guy. He sent me some text messages, but his voice needed to be heard by another man. And so I'm so glad that you emphasize that. And for men who are out there who have received healing, we need you. Just throwing that out there. No pressure. Yeah, so I want to pivot a little bit. I want to talk some about the abortion counseling, the post-abortion counseling. We know that there has been an amazing uptick in the use of the abortion pill. For young women, having abortions, surgical is off the table in a lot of states, but we know that the pills are still available in some states and also being trafficked in some states. Can you talk just a little bit about how the phone counseling is changing with young women being so freshly out of their abortion experience, and how different that abortion experience has been for them?
Yes, it's been quite a game changer for us to see, because we're more of a first responder now. than we were in the past. We're getting calls from women who have, and of course, abortions here in Texas are illegal, including the pills, but that doesn't mean they're not going to a nearby state and taking these pills in a hotel room. And that's where they find themselves. They find the bathroom is now the lab, and they're being faced and forced to deal with the aftermath, which they're not prepared for. They're not, they kind of, I don't know if they've been told or if they believe the lie of it's just a clump of cells, but then they have their baby and this is going to get a little, I'm probably going to get a little real with you, a little, probably too little gruesome, but a lot of times they are seeing their children and they're being instructed to just, when you get those crampings, to go to the bathroom, go to the toilet, and your baby will be released. And that's kind of what they tell them. And it's like, we're finding women who are fishing their children out of the toilet and saving them, because they realize that this baby is 10 weeks old and you can see fully formed feet, you can see those toes and those hands, and it's traumatizing because they're not prepared for that. They're not prepared for what they're going to see. And in the clinic setting, a lot of times you don't see the aftermath. That nurse or that doctor, physician is going to take that and you don't ever see it. But now these women are seeing it, and a lot of times they're very alone. There's not a soul with them in the hotel room, or especially afterwards, after they've taken the pills. There might be someone there, like when you go get them, or go pick them up, you make a friend, but they're very much alone, and they're dealing with this in ways they don't know how. They don't know how to cope. So the phone calls that we get are, I've done this already. It's not like in the past in Texas, you had to have a sonogram. So we get those calls, people who thought we could give them a sonogram before they could go get an abortion. But now it's like they're just sidestepping that whole step, and just, I don't even know if they're, it's not, from what I understand, from the feedback from pregnancy resource centers that we work with, people aren't even coming in for sonograms. They're going straight out of state and just having their abortions and then coming back. And that's where we're seeing them. And we're getting the of just trauma. I can't explain it other than just it's hurt, a fresh wound, and they're not ready for a weekend. They're not ready for anything like that, but we still want to talk to them. We still want to be here with them as they walk that road when they're ready for that, healing. But it's very much more of a first responder role now than it has been in the past. And it's alarming. It's kind of scary. And there's also some concerns about, what if that person was farther along in their gestational age than that 10 weeks, than that limit. That's a concern, is that it is dangerous, if you're not careful. And a lot of these women aren't going into an office. It's by phone, or it's very scary. I'm really worried about this. This is worrying me because of the calls that we get and the stories that we hear.
Yeah. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And, every time we think we understand what's going on, the abortion industry will throw another, monkey wrench in the works. It's bad enough to have this 2-pill regimen where you starve the baby and then the baby is expelled with the second pill. Now we're seeing a push for just the second pills to be given, because they see the pro-life side going after the mifepristone as a dangerous drug, which it is. But now we're hearing that girls are being offered misoprostol only abortions, which means their child is going to be born alive. And so that may be times where they're going to see a heartbeat and they're going to see movement. It's just, this is the most horrific time we are in. I am beyond mortified, but you are right there with these women on the phone. And I know this is graphic, and I know it's going to be tough for a lot of people to hear, but I also know a lot of young people are searching out this kind of information prior to an abortion choice. And so this is why I'm so passionate about it. And I know you are as well, to get the information out there so that they can find it and then be able to make a really informed decision and not be swayed by, like you said, it's just a clump of cells or it's just going to be a heavy period. No, it's way deeper than that. way deeper than that. You talked about Texas being a state where it's pretty much legally shut down, but this whole notion of like pill coyotes and all of these different avenues where girls are getting pills. Tell us a little bit about some of the fallout of that you may have seen, heard, or seen. You talked a little bit about women being in hotel rooms, for example, alone and by themselves. Have you seen or heard anything else, like maybe traffickers pushing pills? Or we've heard so many weird stories, but yeah.
Right. I haven't had any of those stories. More of it is, someone, a boyfriend or a parent is funding them to go out of state to do it.
Okay.
So that's more of what we see. Which that doesn't mean. I mean, just because we haven't heard that doesn't mean it's not happening. I'm sure that's happening, but I have not had anybody admit to that, to doing that to me or heard any stories. And it may be because it may be happening and those men and women don't want to get in trouble. So they're saying they went out of state instead of my boyfriend got these pills and now we're doing,
Right.
whatever the scenario is. Of course, I'm sure it's happening. But a lot of the times they're headed to another state to do it
Mm-hmm.
because it is legal.
Okay.
So I'm
Um,
sorry I can't answer that one for you.
no. You did. It's so underground. A lot of this is so underground that like you said, we may not know the full extent of a lot of it. The majority of states don't have reporting, for example, for abortion incidences. And if you're even a young woman who's had a complication after an abortion, if you choose to go to the emergency department, for example, for extreme blood loss, blacking out, infections, so many young women are afraid to say that this was an abortion. A lot of them will say it was miscarriage or something like that, which means it's hard then for the medical professionals to treat if they don't know what's all happened. And of course, it's hard for them to get healing if they can't say, what it is they've been
Right.
through. So, yeah, any comments on that or?
I definitely agree with that. I mean, we definitely are seeing that. And the other thing is that they do go to the hospital and they don't tell the complete truth about everything because they're afraid of being judged. And then I've had some people who have said, I did tell the emergency, like the ER staff, I told them and I felt judgment right then and there.
Mm,
And so I think there's even more hurt from that is because they're already going through a crisis situation. Now you've added this medical trauma. And then on top of that, you're judging them. So it's just more layers to an already, I'm gonna say it, horrific
yeah,
uh, trauma that people are going through. And
yeah,
so it's making it a lot more complicated than it already was. It was already complicated before we added the pills into the mix.
yeah,
My heart goes out to these men and women because um, a lot of them don't know this, and then they are afraid, which is a whole nother fear, is that you're afraid to go to the ER and you're bleeding out. Like that's not a good thing. It's only gonna get worse from here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's almost mind-boggling. It really is. And like I said, every time we, turn the corner on one thing, it's almost like whack-a-mole. Something else pops up and you're like, oh my gosh, now we have to help young women and men through this situation. Um, we've had some very impactful and some very helpful recovery programs up through these last few decades. I'm really feeling like this new group of young women and men who are coming out with such acute trauma may need something a little different. And I haven't quite discussed or decided what that's going to be. And I certainly am not the only voice in that. But have you found that even with the weekend intensive, that some women and men still may be struggling because this is just such a new arena for them? And, it's almost like in abortion recovery, we've gotten very good at helping the woman who might be 10 or 12 or 20 years post-abortive. Now the landscape is changing, and I just feel like the healing modalities may change as well. I just kind of wanted your opinion on that as well and what you've seen.
I agree with that. It is changing, and it's really been changing since Roe versus Wade was overturned. There's been so many changes in this industry and in this recovery realm. Yes, I do think that we're going to have to. I think that we're going to see women come forward for help sooner than that 10, 12, that decades later mark. And I think it's going to be a lot more intense and a lot, like I said, it's going to be a lot more layered because they've seen their child. They've they have to deal with that too. And so how they deal with that grief is going to be different than, and I think maybe more intense, but I do think that we're going to have to pivot and we're going to have to help sooner. I think they'll be reaching out for help sooner. We've been invited into a lot more college areas than usual. In the past, we would get shut down. You can't come in. You can't talk about this. And then recently, doors have started to open, and they're saying, come talk to our college students. And even if they're a Christian group and they think that, like I talked to one group and they were like, the the minister was like, oh, they're good kids, they don't have abortion in their past. I mean, there's a few of them, so they might. Let's not make that assumption.
Right.
And when I asked them, do you know of anybody who's had an abortion? Every one of them shook their head yes. So it's like, whether you have had one, your friend might have, and you're seeing this, in a different light. And it was eye-opening. And I think that we're going to see younger people. I think that's what we're getting ready to see is people maybe not in their 50s and well, still in their 50s and 60s, but also maybe that 20-year-old or that 25-year-old comes a little sooner. And I do think recovery is going to look different for that person, for sure. It's just what will that look like is what we have to figure out.
And
what we have to work on.
How do we need to get prepared? Exactly. We were blessed to host a summit last year on the coming abortion pill trauma. And, we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about, the young woman being her own abortionist and, of course, never being prepared, never, ever being prepared for that role. But we also talked a little bit about that trauma-informed care that we as, home coaches, online coaches, in-person coaches are going to need. And so I'm just excited whenever we can all partner together and have these kind of conversations because, we're going to be blindsided enough by, the enemy's tactics. We'll never think the way that, that the enemy does. And so we're oftentimes kind of back on our heels and a little bit reactionary. But I feel like we've seen enough now in the last, like you said, year or so that we are going to need to just continue to strategize about how this works for, again, not only the young women and men, but like you said, friends of, who may have been in the room when this is happening that never used to be, now we've got people who have been part and parcel of this situation and they're going to need follow-up and counseling. So this thing is just unbelievable. It's almost like a hydra. There's so many heads to it, but I'm just excited that you guys are expanding your services and that you're seeing this need and meeting it, which is, so crucial, so crucial. Yeah.
I'm thankful that you're talking about it. Like that's the one thing that we have to do is to keep talking about it and keep, of course, from a compassionate perspective, but also very real. I'm not going to sugarcoat the trauma that I'm hearing and the what these men and women are experiencing. It's bad, and I'm glad that you're brave and you have that conversation, you talk about that. And that's the only way I think that if we bring that darkness into the light, that there will be changes. We don't want that person on the other end of the phone to feel that hurt, or that when I go talk to those group of, college age kids, it's like, I don't want this for you. We don't want this pain. We don't want that for you. Just listen to us, but, and then it's a game changer. So I love hearing what you guys do and how you are helping people and keeping that conversation going and moving is so important.
I agree. I feel like young people still want wise counsel. And, this gray hair makes me look wise sometimes. I'm learning sometimes just along as, along it with them as well. But they want to hear both sides. And, we value their decisions. But again, we want to make sure that they are informed, fully informed decisions. And certainly the regret that I feel, I don't want them to ever go through as well. But, we know that there are going to be some who are still going to, make the choice for abortion. And so continuing to make sure that we keep those conversations going, no matter what they decide, that they still have a soft place to land. I know with a Rise Daughter, we try to make sure that we use different modalities such as art to help them have conversations that maybe their words haven't quite formed yet. So there's so many different things that we can do, I think, to keep that conversation going in ways that will help them heal and help Holy Spirit do what Holy Spirit does, which is heal the heart. And so that's what I'm excited about. Tell us a little bit about how people can get in contact with your organization.
Okay, you can always visit our website at careabortionrecovery.com. You can call us at 903-944-7852, or you can email us at careteaminfo@yahoo.com. There's so many different care things, but there is somebody always there. Even if you go to our website, we have a live chat. There's a real person behind that live chat 24/7. So we want to help, and we're here, and our services are of no cost to our participants. We do not charge for that. It is 100% donor funded. So don't let money be an obstacle. If you think you can't afford it, don't worry about it. We got you.
And I would say, if you want to get into the fight, if you want a way to support what this organization does, certainly, I know they must have a donor page somewhere, or a way to contribute to that, because not everybody yet has the training or has the words or has the time to invest in this as we do, Kara. But I know that a lot of people would open up their checkbook for an organization like yours to participate in any way that they can. So I pray that they have that as an option as well. Well, I just want to thank you so much for this time. I want to thank you for your candid responses. I feel just as you do. I feel like the truth is the truth, and I think it needs to be out. And I just want to say that we support all that you do, and whatever it is we can do, maybe it's another conversation at another time as this thing goes a little bit farther. We would love to do that and have you back.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please take a minute to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And again, if you know of any young people who need to hear this information, and you think that they're ready for it, I would highly recommend this segment to them, because I know that wise counsel matters. And I know that the Holy Spirit can move in their hearts to make a different choice. God bless you.